Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Green Flame, the broadcast that brings you radical analysis, practical skills, and artistic expression from the revolutionary movement to defend the planet and rebuild just human communities. I am your host and comrade, Max Wilbur. Today's episode features a conversation with two brothers, Nadeem Shehzad and Nadeem Saud, who live in Delhi in India. They're co-founders of an organization called the Wildlife Rescue, which they formed in 2010 to provide quality healthcare on an emergency basis to native wildlife, especially birds. On average, they treat around 2,500 sick, injured, or orphaned birds each year, and have cared for more than 20,000 birds and animals since they were founded. It's one of the largest rescue facilities specializing in raptors in the entire world. The brothers came to my attention because of a phenomenal film called All That Breathes that was released a couple years ago. It won Best Documentary Film at both Sundance and Cannes, the first documentary to win both in the same year, and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Documentary. It's won at least 37 other major awards, and it's a fantastic film. I would highly recommend it. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation with Nadeem and Saud. So I'm here with Saud and Nadeem, who are brothers. They live in Delhi and they're involved in this wildlife rescue work. And you guys can introduce yourselves much better than I can. So I'm wondering, could you just talk a little bit about who you are, your background, and how you got involved in the work that you do today with wildlife rescue?
I am Nadeem. And I am Saud. And thank you for inviting us for your podcast. And if we are working in Delhi and we run a Raptor rescue center, and Delhi has a very large population of black kites, and so we have a lot of raptors coming to our center. So in the last year, we rescued about 3,300 raptors. And it's like an average more than 3,000 per year. And we are basically, by profession, a businessman. We have a manufacturing unit, and we manufacture liquid soap dispensers. But we have it's more like a part-time now. The work is part-time, and the rescue work is full-time. You want to say something, sir?
Yeah, we started, it's, I think around 23 years ago, we got a injured black kite on the roadside. Then we picked the black kite and took it to a veterinary hospital. So they refused to treat the bird because it is non-vegetarian. Its diet is meat or flesh. So that time we were young, and so
that was not 23 years ago. That was in the year 1994.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
About 30 years, 29 years.
Okay. And 22 years ago, we picked up a bird.
In the year 2003, we finally got the bird to our home. So the first instance when we got the black kite, and that the bird hospital refused to admit it and said that it's a carnivore and we can't feed it meat or a prey. So that time we have to drop the bird back to the spot where we found it. So there was nothing we can do. That family was school-going kids, and we don't know what to do. And then in the year 2003, when we brought the bird to our home, that time we were doing our business and we were not school-going kids anymore. And that time we contacted a veterinarian, called him at our place and get the bird checked. And after a few days, we got another bird, and after a few days, another bird. And we finally made a space for all these birds on the rooftop of our house, which was at that time in Old Delhi. And then this thing started And regularly we used to get black kites, owls, and some Egyptian vultures, hawks, and all. So it's all like informal rescue work we are doing out of our house, and we are keeping birds at our rooftop. And the time went by, and in the year 2010, we finally get it registered as an organization, a non-profit organization. And in 2012, we got the charity status from the government.
Okay. Wow. Well, I have so many questions for you guys because like many other people, I saw the film. I thought it was incredibly powerful, and as somebody who loves wildlife myself, I live in a rural area of Oregon, and there are lots of birds around here, and sometimes they get hurt. Sometimes they fly into a window or something happens. So, I have, in a very non-professional way, been involved in small scale, bird rescues and other creatures too, like lizards and different animals that were on the brink of death, and that with just a little bit of care can come back and be fine and be okay. And so I'm wondering, for people who aren't from Delhi, aren't from India, aren't familiar with black kites, which, from what I understand, they're one of the birds you treat most commonly. Can you help us to understand why it's inspiring to you to work with those birds? How do you feel about these birds? Can you help us to fall in love with them in a way, and why it's important to help them?
So the black kite is the most numerous raptor in Delhi, and it is something the size of, I think, sharps and hawk you have in US, which is a little bit smaller than reptile hawk, but as it is as numerous reptile hawk in the US. But in Delhi, specifically in the city, we have like a lot of slaughterhouses, and India is one of the biggest exporter of meat. So we have this lot of refuse, like meat which is not good for human consumption. It's dumped in an open ground, and the kites, they just wait around that spot, waiting for the food, waiting for the trucks to come in. And when they dump their garbage, they come and they get a good source of food. Also, we have like a lot of garbage problem, like garbage management problem here in Delhi, and with a lot of open dump sites in different parts of the city, which like is much smaller in size, and the birds, they come and they get their food from there. So mainly we have the issue with this bird is that people love to fly paper kites. And when they fly paper kite, they use a sharp string, which is called manja. And it is a cotton string, which is coated with powdered glass to make it sharp. And the idea is that to cut another person's kite out of the sky when they have they collide in midair. So the one who has the sharper thread and more skillful, then that person can cut other person's kite. So it's kind of an unannounced competition which goes on. Like, you don't have to ask anyone to be in the competition. You just start flying your kite, and any kite which comes close to you, you can either get yourself kite cut out of the sky, or you can just cut their kite. So when this bird, any bird which flies into this string, get big, very deep wounds. And the shape of a flying bird is like this, that whenever the string comes into the body, it goes all the way to the wing. It never ends on the face or on the head or shoulder. It always ends on the wing. And there's a part called patagium on the wing, and that is the part which usually get cut by that bird. So if you look at the shape of a patagium, it has like a lot of skin, some tendons, and some muscles, and also bones. So when the thread cuts deep inside the wings, it goes up to the bones. And if the thread is sharp enough, it even cuts the bone. So that is the most problematic thing which we get. And it is a difficult task to fix that bird. It's like a lot of fine, small muscles cut into two parts, tendons cut. So we have to like fix tendons and muscles with suture and all, and skin, we just suture the skin and put on a bandage for about like 15, 16 days. And after removing the bandage, the bird needs another 15, 16 days to learn how to use the new wing, which is recovered. And they finally left our place in about a month or so. And we have one open enclosure. Our flight cage has one open section. When the bird is able to fly up to like 10 feet or so, they can fly out. And they can also come in. And so many birds, when you could not find a suitable place to like settle down, like at the time of when the birds are young, when we receive like a lot of young birds at the baby season, it's about like something like 800 to 1,000 juveniles every year. And it is more beneficial for them to, when they can go out, they look for food, look for water. If they can't find it, they come back and they get the food in our enclosure, they get water, and they can even sleep at the night time, and then we can go out in the daytime, and eventually they slowly get rehabilitated back into the wild. And the ones which we do the surgeries, and when they are able to fly, they can go back to their nest as soon as they're just out of the cage.
So what does it feel like when you are working on a bird and setting them free? What goes through your mind, and what are you feeling when you have that experience? I mean, I imagine you guys have been doing this for so long now that the first time you did it, it must have been a powerful experience. There was something about it that really that was emotionally moving, or that spoke to you in some sort of deep way, that this was an important thing to do to help these birds. Could you talk about that?
So since my childhood, and so then we love flying. Like we wanted to be pilots, but we can't afford that. Flying school is very expensive for us. So when we able to fix a bird and the wings is working fine, and when they take off from the ground to their freedom, that is what we call our payday. We say that finally we got paid for our work, and it's such a lovely sight seeing that bird taking off and flying in the sky. And we feel like it's been our very much like the desire of flying. And if you are not able to fly, we make other creatures fly who are meant to fly in the sky. Like as a human, I am not designed to fly in the sky, but I miss it so much. So I wonder that if someone is designed to fly and can't fly, and we are helping to make it fly, then that is the ultimate return we get it from. Making those creatures fly who are made to fly. And another thing is that whenever we used to see, like in the 1994, when we received the very first bird and nobody was willing to take it in, and we left it on the same spot where we found it, and the next day it was not there. It was gone. And over the years, we used to see a lot of black kites with wounded wings. And we know that since there is no one in the city who will be willing to take it in, so we used to ignore them. So sometimes we used to see them like for a few days. And after a few days, they are gone. So it's like that they die out of starvation, out of thirst. And that is something which is the main driving force behind us to save the misery of those birds. Like they do not have a natural predator. So it's a long, slow process for them to die. So that is something which always keep us working. Like there's been many times in the past when we thought that, okay, we can't do anything more, like we are out of funds. We can't devote much time to this work, like our business is suffering, we are losing on our business. But the very thought that if we are going to stop it, then all these birds will be again on road and they will starve to death. But now some other organizations also start rescuing them. But at the time when we started it, for a long time, there was no one except us who were helping these birds of prey.
I have a lot of respect for that. It's not easy to do something like that. And, speaking from my own experience of handling wild birds, which is not very much, but, quite a few times I've rescued birds that were trapped inside, that had flown inside a house, or, another situation where they were trapped against a window. And my experience has always been that if you talk to them calmly, and your body, with your body language, you show that you're not a threat, that you're there to help them. You're able to catch these birds in your hands and just hold them gently, and to take them to places where they can be set free. And, I've probably done that maybe a dozen times in my life. And the first time that I did it, it was with violet green swallow, and I set the bird free, and it flew up into a tree nearby. And then another swallow, who I have to assume was its mate, flew up, and they started sort of flying around each other, and they were very happy. I could just see from the way that they were moving. And then both of them kind of swooped down above my head, back and forth several times, very close to me. And it was very clear to me that they were saying thank you. They were expressing their appreciation and their gratitude. And it's so common, at least in the United States. I'm not sure about for you in India, but in the United States, it's so common for people to think about animals as being less than human, as not having feelings, as not not expressing themselves in different ways, not being able to communicate. And my experience interacting with wildlife, not just birds, but many other species and types of wildlife, is that's completely wrong, that they are very different from us. Of course, they are very, very different from us, but that they are very similar to us in so many ways. That they have these feelings of curiosity and appreciation and fun and happiness and pain and all of these different emotions that we feel too. So I'm wondering, Nadeem and Saud, if you have any stories to share about the connection with these birds. And you see it a little bit in the film, quite a bit in the film, the connection that you have with these animals. I'm wondering if you want to share any stories about that.
So that's like a very good question. And like when we were like young kids, it was before 1994 when we got this first black guy. Before that, like from our very childhood, we are into some like helping animals or birds wherever we find them. So once we found a dove, and actually Saud found a dove. He brought it to the house, and it was a very young dove, so it needed feeding and all. So it need to be hand fed, and later on it like grow up, and that was the time that bird need to learn how to fly. So our uncle had one large cage where he used to keep flying those racing pigeons. So we kept that a dove in that cage, and it learned how to fly. And after some time, the cage is on a rooftop. So when it was the time to let it go. So we let it fly out, and it flew away. And that was like an hour before sunset, we let it go. So next day, we came to the same spot, and that bird came and just like, it looked like that it's come to say hi, that I'm good, I'm doing fine. So every day it was like a routine, daily routine. Like we used to wait for that bird on the rooftop, and that used to come and stay with us like for a few minutes, and it used to go away. And for like one day it didn't came. For a week, we never saw it again. So we were wondering, like, worried that it might have been like predatored upon by some predator or had some accident or something. But after a week, as we were waiting for that bird, it came back. And with that bird, there was another dove. And it's like, by the body language of the dove, it looks like that he wants to introduce to his or her mate that, look, I got a mate now. Now you should not worry for me. I am fine. I am settled down in my life. I have a family now. And it flew away, and then it never came back. So it was something like, it knows that there are some, like Saud and I was there and might be considering us his parents, and like to meet, look, I am settled in my life now. I have a mate. So, and it's more like when you said that they know the body language. So whenever we go for a rescue, we have seen that's like someone else is approaching that bird and we are approaching that bird. So it's like a very different scenario. Whenever someone else approaches the bird, they are more like aggressive. They try to fight back. But whenever we approach birds, they are more like they just surrender to us. Like they never fight back, and they just lay down on the ground. Just look like, I surrender to you. So it's more like the body language. But as a person, I think that it's not just body language. I call it the heart. They can communicate through the heart to heart. Like they can see not just your body language, but they can just judge you by looking at you. And that is something like when we used to, it was like very initial days of a treatment. And sometimes there's some big wound of a bird which needs to be fixed. And we do not have any access to do anesthesia. We used to put that bird in our lap. And with our thumb, we used to just press the head with the thumb and make it more comfortable in our hand. And after like few minutes, that bird goes to sleep. So that the sleep is so strong that even if the needle is inserted with that wound for a suture to be done, it never felt it. It's more like they goes in kind of a hypnothesia, we can say, but it's not actually hypnotize. It's more like we are creating the surroundings so much comfortable, so much safe that they never think anything of else. Like they are 100% sure that they are in safe hands and they need not worry. So whenever they feel a prick of the needle in their body, they never show any kind of reaction to this. And that same, sometimes we have volunteers and we sometimes give that bird to a volunteer and say, like, make it sleep. So they try to do it. Some are able to make that bird sleep, some can't. So we used to call it that person has a pure heart who's make the bird sleep, and the other person is not so pure. Like it's more, this is intention is not just to help animals. He has some more intentions than that. The people who are able to make the bird sleep, we used to say that they have no other intention than just to help the bird. So that we call it is not more like a body language. It's more like a connection of your heart to the bird's heart. So that is something, it might sound very weird, but through our experience, it's something you can do it without even medicine or something like. It is something I can't explain to you. Yes, please. So anything I think I left from your question?
No, that's a beautiful answer, and it doesn't sound weird to me at all. It sounds very normal, in fact, and I grew up with pets and animals around when I was a kid growing up: cats, dogs, some birds, rodents of various sorts, chickens, and it's very clear that these creatures can communicate with us, can sense our intentions, can sense the energy, the heart that we bring when we show up with them. And it doesn't sound strange to me at all. It sounds like the most understandable thing in the world. And the story that you share about the doves is such a beautiful story. I've heard stories similar to that many times in the past. My uncle, for example, he rescued a baby crow, and he raised this crow, and it was his friend, and it would hang with him all the time and ride around on his shoulder. And then eventually it started flying away, but it would come back and visit with him and then leave again. And then eventually, that crow went off and had its own life. And it's so interesting to me, these examples of these interspecies relationships, because it seems to me that this used to be normal. This used to be something that almost every single person would experience, because we lived in nature. We all lived in relationship with wild animals every single day. But now living in an industrial modern society, it's so unusual. It's actually very uncommon to have these direct interactions with wild animals. And I just have a sense, and I imagine that you might agree, that we lose something very, very powerful in this. There's I'm here in the United States, in what's now called the United States, but of course it was indigenous Native American people's land before it was the United States. And I have a friend who's from the Northern Paiute Nation, and she tells these stories and that the old stories of their people. And she talks about how they looked at the animals. In their worldview, the animals are the teachers of the people, and that the humans are regarded as the younger siblings, that the animals are regarded as the elders. And there's this humility of, we have so much to learn from these creatures. And that knowledge might not come in the form of science or equations or technology or even words that we can speak, but it comes in sort of this deeper level of energy and that heart connection that you're talking about. And what my experience has been that in interacting with animals, we strangely enough, we learn to become more human. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, either of you, Nadeem or Saud.
Yes, that is more like every species has something to teach us. And with my experience being with animals so close, now we have bigger space, when we started this thing, we have very limited space and smaller house than what we have right now. So many birds used to share my bedroom. So, and the baby season time, in the daytime, we have baby hawks flying around, learning how to fly in my bedroom. And in the night, we have owls. So me and my wife were very closely observe how these animals behave. Like more like owls, especially, they are far, far more intelligent than we know that they are like. And I have one particular individual, spotted owlet, which was my first spotted owlet. So I end up imprinting it, and it was like he was so much close to me that he used to think that I am a spotted owlet myself. He's like he doesn't consider himself human, but he used to consider me as an owlet. And that was confirmed by that one day uh, that I named him Chitku. So Chitku was perching on something near the window, and he had looked at me, and he like by his body language, I thought that he said, "Come to me," and I went where he was perching on, and he said, "Look outside. There's a black kite, and it's a very large bird, and you need to hide, otherwise it might attack us. So why don't we both hide?" And I said, "No way, I am not a owlet. I'm not scared of black kites." But he instead that I am hiding and you also go and hide. You can't just match against a black kite. So it's more like this conversation between us two was obviously not verbal, but I don't know how I able to understand all these things. Like still, like if you are just using your body just to make understand, like with your body language, but there is something more than body language. Is what I feel. And you have all sorts of animals who, like sometimes we have a lot of garbage issues. So when these black kites go on and feed on garbage, sometimes they get some infections on their feet. And so there's some like some bacterial infection is there, and which makes them lose their limbs. Like the whole tissue will be dead, and all this keep on eating up all this soft tissues, and ultimately up to their like what we call metatarsus, it all just falls off. Like first, all this soft tissue will be liquefy and they fall off. So sometimes we get kites which do not have any, both of the legs are gone, and they were still surviving in the wild. And the thing is that they are more of a scavenger. They survive on dead animals or garbage, so they don't have to hunt. So it is more of them like without even a single talent, they're able to find food and survive in the wild. And it is something like we say that humans have like a huge spirit to fight their disability. They find a way to, like someone doesn't have leg, you can just find a way, like other humans help them. But in the birds, there is no other bird helping that bird. So the spirit of fighting for survival is something which every species has, like is a very strong spirit, and it's something that you need to experience. And if you go like all like living closely with especially owls, owls are, I think, the most intelligent bird out there. And they are the one I've seen their emotions. Like if I am sad, owls know that I am sad. They will talk to me accordingly. And if I'm happy, they know I'm happy. So they talk to me accordingly. So something I say that humans and animals are not too different. Like they belong to this same planet, evolved from similar species, and here we are having same mental capability, that humans are a little bit more advanced than those birds, but not that much. There's not a big difference between humans and birds. And when we, like you must have seen in the film, that we never use safety gloves while handling birds. And why we do that, that when we go and touch them with our hands, bare hands, they feel more comfortable, they feel more safer. And like whenever I visit in US, and there's everywhere in US, whenever you are handling a raptor, you need to have a safety glove. And thing is, when I have seen that when you go and you need to capture a raptor, and for some reason or other, everyone in the US have seen, they go just from the front because they're wearing the gloves. So they go on and start grabbing the bird. So the bird fights back. And obviously then they need gloves. So my take is that if you are wearing a glove, you need to have a glove. And when we approach a bird, we just might sit in front of it for a few seconds, look at it, and we take our hand over the bird and grab the bird from above, never from the front. So that is more like making a comfortable gesture that, look, I am here to help you, as compared to that I'm just going in and just with full force approaching the bird and just trying to grab the bird. It's more like our method is not to grab the bird. It's just like to kind of hug the bird. Like, it's difficult to explain, but if you are someone who used to do it, they can just understand it. So I want to add something.
When we hold the bird, we just make them comfortable in our hands. So our method to holding the bird is not that we are just capturing the bird and holding the bird in our hand. And so we make them comfortable in our hands. We hold them like this softly and gently and make them, we try to keep our hands on the birds
without gripping,
holding the bird with minimum surface area.
And it's like that we sometimes hold on with our body, our torso. Their backs is on our torso, and we have the hands around their body without any force or without any strong grip. It's like very, very soft grip.
Sometimes we hold the bird by holding it on the body with a single finger only.
Yes, sometimes, yes. That is it. If you can see a video or a picture, you will be able to understand it better.
Yeah.
If you want, I can share up some pictures with you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it makes total sense to me, because I've had the same experience when handling birds. And, it's the difference between, as humans, when we if a person were to be hunting and were to grab, a fish or something like that to keep it to eat, you grab it hard because you're going to kill that animal. It's food. Whereas, if you're grabbing your child, your baby, to pick them up, it may look in a very big picture way, it may look the same. You're grabbing them, but you're gentle. There's a very different energy behind it. And of course, it seems like, birds and other wildlife will understand this too, because they hunt, they get food, whether it's, insects or seeds or mice or whatever else they're eating. They know that difference between a predator grasp, to hold on to eat, versus, raising their their chicks, their babies in a nest, and they're stepping over them, they're touching them, they're around them, and they're doing it, of course, in a very careful, gentle way. So it seems like every bird has experienced that gentleness, that energy that their parents used around them when they were sitting on the nest and moving around their babies.
It's like a dog who put its pup by its mouth.
Yes,
And
that is
uh,
a
it's like
very
that.
gentle thing.
First, we have to know the psychology of the animal, and we have to hold the bird.
So it's more, yes. So it's like all different for different species. And I have noticed that all these predatory birds, they are far more intelligent than the prey. And when we like, as you have mentioned, like the crib, as like they know that we are holding them softly, so we don't mean any harm to them because they know
Yeah.
whenever they touch their baby or they grab a pigeon, they know what's the difference between the crib.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have to share one quick funny story with you guys. There's at the place where I live at my home, we have a small shed where we keep firewood, and there's a skylight, a window in the ceiling. And so once or twice a year, a bird will fly in. The sides of this structure are open. So once or twice a year, a small bird will fly in and get caught in there, and they'll be trying to fly out the skylight, but they can't figure out how to get out. Usually they'll figure it out themselves and get out fine. But sometimes I have to climb up on top of this, climb up a little ladder on top of this area right under the skylight and catch the bird and set them free. And so when I do that, I'm kind of up in an awkward position, on top of this wood structure that's 6 or 8 feet tall, couple meters, 2 meters tall. And so I have the bird in my hand. And so what I do is I take the bird in one hand very gently, just sort of cradling them like you're speaking about. And I lean over the side and I point the bird's head towards the open doorway, and I let them look at it for a little while. And then I just give them a gentle little toss. And they go out and they open their wings and they fly straight out the door, and it works perfectly every time. And every time it gives me so much joy because there's sort of this understanding. At first they may have a little bit of fear, but then they realize very quickly, oh, this person is helping me. And then and there's a sense of relief that they have when they fly out of my hands, and I have it too.
Yes, that is something which obviously they are, by the intelligence level they have, like people like make fun of them, like Birdbrain, which I strongly disagree with them.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have a question for you guys. A few more questions and we'll wrap up because I know it's getting late there. And
no issue.
So I'm an environmental activist, and I'm often doing community organizing work to protect wild areas or different areas of habitat from destruction. And so I'm curious what you guys think about, the relationship between the work that you do and, the destruction of habitat and pollution and these other environmental issues that we're seeing around the world.
As far as this Delhi is concerned, it's already settled in like urban ecology thing, and all those species which we come across, they're already suited for this environment. And like black kites, they get a lot of food and a lot of trees to nest. And like pigeon, we do not take in like to work for pigeon, but as far as our observation goes, we have seen them thriving in the city. And in the last 10 years, we have noticed that there is a rise in food-bearing local trees, which our forest department was doing a plantation drive sometimes back, and now the trees are ready. They have replaced this invasive species with the local fruit-bearing trees. And one interesting thing which we have noticed that there's a one bird called Indian grey hornbill, which was not present in Delhi. And a generation before us, they don't know what bird it is. Like they have never seen it. And in the last 10 years, we have seen them coming to Delhi and their number is growing up. We have seen lots of them now. And it's all like, and some species like mainly we have like house sparrows, which is now almost non-existing in some parts of Delhi, but some parts they are still there. So it's more like if we consider Delhi as an ecosystem, there's a lot of species which either have migrated or could have died out. And some species we got which have like more of a opportunity to grow. They are in the city. So overall, if you see that this is a huge decline, obviously, there's a lot of destruction of species like environment, and most of the species are going like they are in a really bad shape. So it's more like if we are not going to make a balance, then we might have like future species which are more like most of them will be gone, but few of them will be there, replacing all those spaces with their own kind and thriving in our urban ecosystem. But as a world as a whole, we will be definitely on the loss.
Well, I really appreciate what you guys are doing in the face of that. It's very important work. So the last question I have for you guys, I saw that you're running a fundraiser right now to try and raise money to support your efforts. How can people help? And specifically, how are people who are located, in Delhi or in India, how can they help? And how about people who are far away all over the world? How can people help what you're doing or get involved in wildlife rescue in their area?
So we have recently established one organization in US, which we call Raptor Rescue and Research. And we finally got 501c3 certificate like a month ago. And we are having one like that is local US organization, which is helping us. So if someone in the US wants to help us, they can directly donate to Raptor Rescue and Research, and they can also benefit from the 501c3 certificate. And in India, we also have this called ATG, which is equivalent to 501c3. And that we have like from the year 2012. And so from donors from India can get the tax benefit if they donate to the wildlife rescue, which we call our organization here in India. So we have a website called raptorrescue.org, and we have all kind of options there, like anybody want to like use PayPal or they want to use Zelle in the US, or they can transfer ACH, or in India they can use a card, or they can directly transfer to our bank, or they can do scanning a QR code and making some donation. They can do that as well. So every place, so it's like very easy to, if someone wants to help. So recently we are raising some funds for one ambulance, like a pickup vehicle for the birds. And like in the US, people bring birds to the hospital, like everybody has some means of transport, a car or something, which is not so common in India. And the people are not so comfortable handling raptors. They say that they might attack us and we might get hurt. And this is perfectly fine for if it would have been a pigeon. So we need to go out and get the birds. And most of the cases which we receive is from other veterinary hospitals, the one who used to refuse taking in raptors. So since the year 2010, we are getting all the raptors which end up in their facility. So it's almost every day we go and collect birds from them. So now we have like raised about $7,000 for our ambulance, and we need to have like 3,000 more. It's about like $10,000. So right now we are working on it, and we're also planning to screen our film in various places in US, and we can coordinate with wildlife centers on that place, and they can come, like having a screening. We're planning to come to US and have some like Q&A after the screening and all, and we can, if possible, if there's someone wants to donate to us, we can just have a like one-on-one talk, so like have more kind of credibility. So it's more like right now the in local Indian donations are going down. So might be because India right now has a lot of economic issues, like no business and all. Like we are also suffering because of our business has gone down. So it's for everyone in India. Everybody is like kind of a financial hardship. So it's every day the number of donations coming to us goes down locally. And so we have to first now we have to focus specifically from the help outside outside India. So it's more like all of our focus is more on how to raise funds. And basically I am the one who sees to it. And so sees all this other like medical stuff goes around in the center. And we also have developed new techniques like the one I told you about, like fixing wings, like suturing their muscles and their tendons, which strangely enough that it's not like that's wrong choice of word. Kite flying is not in the US. So it's very rare for US veterinarians to get a patagium injury bird, but it is very common in India. So that most of the cases are patagium injury. So we have developed one procedure, how to fix those wings, how to suture their muscles and suture back their tendons and all, and make the bird fly again. So this is something which is not known in the US. And back in 2018, when this NWRA conference was there in Los Angeles, we came to the US and presented our work. We are planning to have another presentation which is much more sophisticated and much more refined technique than what we have presented back in 2018. And if wildlife centers here like to learn how to do that, our main aim is to just spread the knowledge. And sometimes, like after 2018, we receive emails from veterinarians in US and Canada that asking that this is the condition of the bird and this is how patagium looks like, and what do you suggest? So we are very happy to help anyone who, like, just because that we receive a lot of cases, we have developed a technique, and in US there are very rare cases of patagium injury. But if and the most of the cases are euthanized in US because veterinarians think that they can't repair it, but at our place we are repairing them like on a daily basis. So it's something we want to ask anybody who want to learn something about it. We are most welcome to do.
Well, I want to thank you guys for the work that you're doing. It's amazing. I'm sure, you don't need thanks from me because you're getting that feeling every time that you release a bird back into the wild. But yeah, from the land where I live, which is the home of red-shouldered hawks, dark-eyed juncos, acorn woodpeckers, great horned owls, varied thrushes, spotted towhees, many, many, many other birds. Thank you. And thanks to all the people out there who are doing similar work. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we wrap up?
It's not like one question which you asked and I forgot to answer is that you said, what about the people here and their relation towards the animals? Like India is like, we are fortunate enough to that they live with animals here. Like in the streets, you see a lot of stray dogs, a lot of cows, a lot of birds on the rooftop. It's more like people don't hate animals here. They are more like pro animals. And what we have, like whatever is left over, the food, people always keep them outside their house. So any dog can come or any cat can come and eat it. So we never waste any food, which like if there is a use of anything, like sometimes there is a lot left over in plate and there's no pressure like you have to clean your plate, like you have to eat everything. We say, no, this I'm leaving for that particular animal, which just live outside our house. So our society is more like they live alongside with the animals and they are perfectly fine. Even people are fine with snakes. In India, we have a lot of snake bites. People die in large number out of snake bites. But whenever the snakes come to a house, the first thing that person tries is to call a rescue service, which can just rescue the animal, the snake, and release it somewhere safe. And if that is not possible and they're more worried about the safety, that the only option is to like hurt the snake. But the first thing everyone tries is to save that animal. It's more like it is something which I really like in our society.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is that is something that you see in different areas around the world. I know it's very strong in India, and we're seeing in some areas this increasing openness to the intelligence and the value of wildlife. Here in the United States, it was very common over the past 10, 15 years. It's been very common to talk about the value of nature for the economy as ecosystem services, or as these terms that sort of are applying a mechanical logic to animals. But I was just reading an article the other day about the question of consciousness, and we're seeing that even the Western scientific worldview is starting to understand increasingly that animals are conscious. They have consciousness. They're sentient. They have feelings and emotions. They are much more similar to us than many people would have believed in the past. So I'm glad to see that, and I think everyone who has these interactions with animals themselves knows that. We can feel it intuitively, and I hope that thanks to work that you all are doing, thanks to the great film All That Breathes that you were featured in, and similar work that's being done around the world, I hope that worldview will spread and that more people will continue to treat animals better, respect habitat, and live in ways like you guys are that's actually making the world a better place. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for inviting.
This is Max Wilbert, one of the hosts of the Green Flame podcast. I want to thank you for listening to our show and let you know a few ways that you can support the Green Flame. First, you can subscribe to our platform using the podcasting system of your choice. We're listed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, and all the rest. We're even on YouTube. Leaving us a positive review or rating on these platforms helps us reach a larger audience. You can also share these shows with your friends. If you're interested in donating to support the production of the Green Flame, please visit deepgreenresistance.org. And finally, the goal of this show is to activate people. So if you really want to support this show, start organizing in your own community. Thank you again for listening.